We're going to see a whole lot more engagement in terms of the internet and all of this stuff. You know, we look at Facebook. That's old, 500 million users, and the value of Facebook. Farmville on Facebook, what do they have, 10, 30 million farmers? Something like that, playing a farming game on Facebook. How many, has anybody ever tried this one, Farmville? No? I think they've got, I forget how many people, but I think years ago, I think they had 10 million people. 10 million people pretending to farm on Facebook. This is incredible. So we actually need to be engaged in that because we certainly need to know what they're doing. And we probably want to be able to help influence the sort of things that happen. So, because that influence, 2 billion, sort of 2 billion videos watched every day on YouTube. Well, that's a really big, powerful tool to get there. Say every minute, 24 hours of content are uploaded. That's scary, but it's absolutely, and Justin Bieber is the most popular recently anyways, which is why. So you can use YouTube to actually get out stories about your products, about the way you produce, about your commitment to the community, and that can be a really powerful tool. But you also have to recognize that anybody with a cell phone can take a video and put that up on YouTube and destroy your reputation if you're doing anything that you really shouldn't be doing. In this case here was picking up a downed cow with a forklift. And 600,000 people practically had already seen it at that point. So if we think about sort of what are we going to have to do over the next year, and Paul Martin was asking, okay, well, how are we actually going to manage in this really different future? You have to think, well, one of the things you can do is you can sit around and hope it doesn't get too different, which isn't going to happen at all. Or you can try and actually change. You try and make really big differences. And I think the first thing we have to do collectively as a nation is to say, what is our vision of agriculture and food in Canada? And what do we think we want this industry to look like in 10 years? And so I just think it needs to be innovative, high value, because it has to be profitable. It's going to be food and industrial, and it's got to be sustainable. Those things I think are critical. So I really encourage all of these national food strategy initiatives, and I hope that they all come together into one food strategy, because that's the first point. Paul's point this morning was, government really doesn't want to lead. Frankly, I don't really want them to lead either when it comes to developing a food strategy. That's not what they do. That's not what they're best at. What they're good at is creating the policies to help the industry move ahead, and to creating policies to help the industry really get going. And they can help with things like branding us as a nation. That's important. We've got this amazing brand around the world. It is kind of scary that people don't like us as well after they've dealt with this as before they deal with this. That is a concern. So we need to address that. But that's going to be important. And we're going to be in two places. We're going to be in commodity markets still. A lot of what we do is commodity. And so we want to think about, can we be in the higher end of those? But if we're going to be in those, we need to be cost-effective, productive, and also responsive to changes in markets. We're also going to be in these high-value niche markets. And to be those, we have to be innovative, we have to differentiate our product. And no matter what we do, it's probably going to have to be sustainable, and it's probably going to have to be healthy in some way. So we want to be thinking about that. We're going to have new business systems. And we're going to be looking at, well, how can we extract all of the value? I mean, Jason's thing about the whole extracting biochar, extracting energy, extracting oils, and we need to talk to you about this. Very interesting work on that being done in Western. Is really important. It's going to be a huge piece for us. The biorefinery, take a look at your crop and say, where's every piece of value in that crop, and how am I going to get that? That's the difference it's going to be. It's not just going to be, it's canola, or it's #1 corn, or whatever. It's going to be, how do we get all this value out of it? We're starting to see people think about closed-loop systems, systems where the energy is used back in the system. Interesting, Pepsi's got a thing with their potato chips. They want to use the rind, or the skin, to actually produce energy to cook the potato chip. Then they're saying, can we take we always extract all the water from the potato. Can we actually use that to be the water in our process? They're trying to make a complete closed-loop potato chip system, which is huge. Quality and credibility is going to be important. Our reputation is going to really matter to us in the future. That's what we're going to take out to the world. And we have to think about how we compare in terms of scale to others. If we're way smaller, then we want to be more innovative and more differentiated. If we're bigger with lots of cost advantages, then we maybe can focus on that. Innovation, lots of different dimensions of innovation, new products, new ways of doing things, new ways of working together, and new technologies. All of those are going to be important, and we're starting to understand better that to get those done, you need to think about the whole system, and you need to think about being much more flexible. We used to view this as just shove a technology out of the university, help it a little bit, and we'll probably get there. That's not the case. Different companies need different things to commercialize, and so some you may have to help with marketing, some you may have to help with money, some you may have to help with management. So there's lots of things there. Organizational innovation, the big issues are going to have to be solved by industry and government working together, and academia to some extent. We have to see those, and it's not just going to be often one level of government or one type of, it's not going to be necessarily ag ministries dealing with ag ministries dealing with ag companies. It's going to be a whole lot more complicated mess than we've seen in the past. Moving something through the market, you need to think about, well, what is the market need for my new idea? And this is the stuff that Jason was talking about when he was assessing his opportunity. Is that market big enough? Is it attractive enough? Can I offer something that's different? And so you have to go through that kind of a process of saying, what else is out there in terms of market solutions, and why is mine different? If it is different, then you start to filter down to, well, here's what I think I can offer the market. The last piece of this is actually, okay, that's my idea. Now, how do I actually execute? And this is where groups like the Ag Council come into play. Because when you go to take a new idea to market, there's risk. And there are relationships you need, there's help that you need. And so what you usually would do, you say, well, what do we have internally? And where are the gaps? What are we really missing? Are we missing capabilities? Are we missing technologies? And where can we actually get all of those? And so then you start to think about, what are the partnership models that will make sense? How can I get those partnerships? Who will work with me? What will they contribute? How am I going to scale up? Is the government going to help me build the first processing plant? Do I have to partner with somebody from Japan? What are the best ways to do this? The regulatory approval, I actually put it in green just to differentiate from all my red ones, but it actually should be in red with everything else green, because regulatory approval is still an issue for us, and we are going to have to come up with a faster, more flexible regulatory approach to this. And ultimately, you're going to do some kind of extension innovation and start the whole process again. And that tends to be, like the stories you heard today, that tends to be regional. That tends to happen within provinces, within parts of provinces, and so I think it's really important for us to maintain the kind of organizations that we have in terms of like the adaptation councils, which have industry reps and government reps, and they're all local. I think that's an important piece. At Ivey, we talk about cross-enterprise leadership, which just means thinking about all the different types of things that you have to think about and the people you have to work with. When I think of business success and ag industry success, I sort of see three levels of things that we have to do well. One is understanding our business. When I was farming, I understood my business, and I went, and essentially I tried to learn as much as I could about how to manage that business really well. And I wanted to understand why do people buy from me. And it's really important if you're in a differentiated product. But the harder thing that we aren't, so we're pretty good at that business management. The thing we're not as good at is this whole idea of working in groups and working with networks and connecting to customers around the world and connecting to suppliers and figuring out how to get the most out of all of those relationships. That whole idea of network leadership is a critical piece of what we're going to have to be better at in the future, because we're not that good at it right now. And the last piece, and this is the one that I think is the most important. Paul said the government does not want to lead You know who's going to determine the future of your entire industry is going to be your industry boards, your commodity boards, organizations that really are determine what markets are we going to be in, what policies are we going to support, and what are we going to do in terms of innovation, food safety, research, all of those things. Those are the most important. Elect the best people possible and try and essentially help them understand that they are actually charting the course for the future. And so we need to do all of these things well to make this work. The industry leadership, we've sort of identified this as a gap when I was at Guelph. Ivey does a whole lot of executive development stuff, so I've gotten them interested, and we're starting to see what the industry thinks, but I've gotten them interested in trying to develop a program of the kind of thing we put VPs and big companies through for commodity boards, for industry boards, and to put both executive directors and directors through, to really say, here's how you do strategy, here's how you do research strategy, here's how you lead, here's how you do government. So we're actually trying to put that in place right now. It's just one thing I think that can actually help the industry, but I think it's a really important part. And I don't care whether we do it or somebody else does it, but frankly, I personally do not believe all the industry boards are operating as effectively as they should. If you're running an industry that's 200 million in sales, 2 billion in sales, you should look like the boards that run Bank of Montreal, Encana, all of those things. You should be thinking exactly the same thing. What are we doing strategically? How am I going to make this industry the most successful I possibly can? So that's, I think, a really important part. Looking ahead, you know we're going to see more demands. We're going to see more competition. We're going to see higher expectations from consumers and from companies. We're going to see a lot more risk, but I think way more opportunities than we've actually seen over the last while. And innovation is going to be an important part of that, and I think the councils are going to also be a really important part of that as well. And so it's a little scary. I actually find the amount and the speed of change of thing in the industry is a little bit frightening, but I find it really, really exciting. I thought Abe Lincoln said it really best. The best thing in the future comes only one day at a time, which means you actually do have time to change. You actually do have time to think about where your business is going, where your industry is going, and I just think I look ahead and I think, wow, this is going to be an amazing industry. You know, it already is, but it's going to be an amazing industry in the next 10 years. So thanks very much.